Hey, this is Mathieu Frémaux, aka Frameworks. I'm really glad to introduce you the version 2 of my most useful script called MoglyphFX. Once you have installed the products correctly, you should end up with this UI panel here, MoglyphFX. So previously, you had only two tabs called Generate and Animate, and as you can see at the first glance, you have now a third tab called Help Mat. I will explain it a bit later because it deserves a lot of explanation because there are a lot to talk about. Okay, let's start with the Generate tab. Okay. To understand what is new here, I will create just a radial cloner like before, and now you have two new options called 2D cloner or 3D per glyph. Before this version 2 of Moglyph, you couldn't create 3D per glyph. You were bound to use 2D clones only. So let's create this. Okay, and now, as you can see, you have, oh, sorry, I will undo this. By default, you should have basic geometry. Okay, so you had this, okay, and you are in 2D space. But now you can choose to have 3D per glyph before the creation of the cloner, or even just by clicking this button. If your cloner layer is still selected, you will be able to change this on the fly. As you can see, it's 2D here, and now it's 3D, 2D, 3D. Perfect. It's working just on the fly when you have one cloner or several cloner layers selected. So I will undo this and I will create another cloner setup just to make you see this feature. So I will create a new one, but before this I will let the 3D per glyph checked, and I will choose another color for the fill, clones, and for the stroke. To be able to see the stroke different, you have to go to the character and to play with this option here, which is 0 by default. But if you do something like this and even put a 0 here, now you can choose some colors here. So I will deselect this one, I will choose another color, for example an orange, and I would choose let's say a pink here. And now each new cloner will have some orangish clones and some pink strokes. So I will create another cloner. Okay, great. And as you can see, this one has been created in 3D space. I can see this thanks to the axis here. And if I had chosen 2D before the creation, it would have been 2D like this one. And you can't see the stroke for the moment just because I have added an option in the Moglyph cloner itself. In the transform pseudo effect, you have now an option to play with the stroke thickness. Okay, so now I can play with this. Okay, you couldn't do this before. And as you can see, the stroke is this stroke. Okay, great. And this one you can play with the stroke as well, like this, but you can animate this with the stroke thickness as well. Okay, great. And what I was saying is that you can change them on the fly when you select them with a multiple selection. So if I select both of them with a shift key, I can now toggle from 2D to 3D, and now both are in 3D space. If I click on 2D, now they are only on 2D space. And you can change their fill color at the same time as well. Okay, and same for the stroke, you can change them as well. It's a really nice addition because you can make your change on the fly. Okay, so why would I make my clones in 3D space, because now you have in the pseudo effects, let's take this one, you have in the Moglyph cloner transform, you have the ability to play with the rotation Y and the rotation X. Before that, you just couldn't do that at all. So it's really cool to be able to do something like this. Okay, so you can animate them and play with this. Of course, with just these glyph shapes, it's not that interesting. But imagine, let's delete this, that you have something like this before. So something like orange here. And I will choose a new font that I've delivered with this new version of Moglyph, which is called Moglyph Money Coins. Okay, I will choose this one. And I will create now a new radio cloner with a 3D per glyph checked on. So what it does is create a $sign here, and I can add a new glyph with the add new glyph button, and I will click on let's say a dollar and a new euro sign. Okay, this is a new cool font that I use a lot for my infographics that are about money. And just before clicking this one, I want you to see another feature that I have added here at the bottom of the glyph panel. Now you can choose the color of the fill and the stroke color for each new glyph shape. So dollar will be with this same yellow-orange color, but if I want my euro coin to be another color, I can then change it right there. Okay, maybe this bluish color, and I could choose the color of the stroke as well, but I won't change it for that now. And I will click on the euro coin here, and as you can see, now if I close the window, my $sign has the same color as my general glyphs, and I've changed the color per glyph shape, which is great. You couldn't do that before. And I can retrieve the new colors here in each glyph effect. And previously in previous versions, you just had a single slider here for each glyph, a single slider. But now you end up with a full pseudo effect that allows you to customize the shape, as you can see, like before, but you have also the ability to play with the transform option. So you can position each glyph separately. You can even animate this and create some cool stuff. You can change the scale based on each glyph, and same for the euro sign, for example. Okay, really great. And you retrieve the colors of your glyphs in the style options, not in the transform. It matches what you find in the effectors. So you have transform and style. Style contains the information about fill color, stroke color, and stroke thickness. Okay, so we can have different thickness for each glyph shape, which is great as well. And you can click on colors from cloners if you want your all your clones to be based on the color of your Moglyph cloner, which is this one. Okay, this is the case for the $sign because I didn't change the color in the glyph panel, but the euro one have been changed. This is why I can retrieve the color here, and I can change this later as well. Okay, great. So this is a nice addition, being able to play with each glyph transform and style option independently. And if you have this kind of design, you can play with the rotation on X and on Y. Of course, you can play with the Z rotation if you are in 3D or if you are in 2D, because of course in 2D the pseudo effects won't change. You just have to play with the rotation Z for 2D stuff, because I couldn't change the pseudo effect for 2D and 3D differently. It would have been a nightmare to have all those configurations, so I leave the same effect for 2D and 3D options. So this is the same pseudo effect, and of course if you are in 2D cloner, you won't be able to play with the X and the Y rotation. Hope it makes sense. Okay, so I will return in 3D per glyph, so keep in mind that you have to select your Moglyph cloner before if you want to change. Okay, great. And you could extrude these 3D shapes and then you could animate them like this with the 3D Cinema 4D engine. So you have to select not the 3D classical engine, but clicking on this and you can change for Cinema 4D engine. Okay, and as you can see now, the color of each glyph won't be able to be based on these colors because I've changed the engine, but you can still deploy and drill down the effects and the text animators, and you can go to geometry options and extrude your layer with this option here. And if you want to have some different colors for the face, the front, the back and the extrusion, you'll have to add some new front colors like I'm doing here. Okay, let's take the same yellow for the front. I will add the same color for the back, and I will add another color for the extrusion. Okay, let's do something like this. And now you have a full 3D object that you can turn with the options. Okay, of course the anchor point here is based on the glyph itself, so if you want to change it, you have to select your animation, your animator, and add an anchor point property and move your this is okay, this is that. Okay, so if I extrude this to, let's say 50, I have to put 25 here, and now I can turn my 3D glyphs like it was like if it was in full 3D. So it's really great. Okay, and you can still animate them with the animators, which I called effectors, that are in Animate tab. Okay, let's continue with the Animate tab. To illustrate the new possibilities right there, I will create a new composition and I will create a new cloner from scratch. Okay, so I will leave it to 2D with maybe just a basic geometry. Okay, just like this. And I will change the color as well. Okay, great. So I have a cloner, a basic one, in radial mode. I will click on the Animate tab, and as a first glance, you can already see that I have now 8 buttons where I had before in previous version only 6 buttons. It means that you have now 2 new effectors. This is the new group effector and the new sound effector. Yep, sounds great. As you can see, you can now animate your clones depending on sound, which is really fun. But let's start with just a group effector. So how does it work? You just have to select your cloner to add your different effectors. Okay, so let's add a plane effector, for example. I will just not change the style, so I will leave the color as it was. And as you can see, if I disable the little FX icon next to the effector, you deactivate it temporarily. It's a new addition. Before it didn't work, so it's just a little addition, but it's really great to help you go faster in your experimentations. So my effector here just push the clones towards the center of the ring. Okay, just keep that in mind. I've just played with the position, which is minus 100 by default in this mode. So my effector does this. Great. I will click on my cloner again, and I will now change the time. Okay, the time by default will change the hue of my color. As you can see, the color change, and the rotation on Z of my colors, of my clones, sorry. So now you have the plane effector that makes the ring smaller, and my effector time that rotates all my clones at the same time and colorize them. But for the color, I will add a third effector to randomize them a bit. I will then click on my cloner radial and select the random effector. So the random effector, as you can see, will randomize the scale by default and the color of my clones. So I will go inside my effector random, and I will just go to transform and not play with the scale. Okay, so I will leave it at 0, and now only the colors are flickering randomly. Okay, so the plane effector is responsible to the small ring. The effector time make my clones rotating, and my effector random make my clones flickering with a random color. Okay, so now what if I wanted to play with all these effectors at the same time? Okay, I could go to each effector. Let's say, for example, the plane effector. I want to animate the completion in the fall off like this, but as you can see, it just play on the position, and it's normal because I just play in the vector plane. But I would like to do the same for the rotation, so I have to go to the time effector, go to fall off, and play with the same value here. And I want to do this as well for the effector random. As you can see, it will be a pain to do this for a lot of effectors. So I had to do this a lot in my previous works. This is why I decided to create this group effector. So now let's add a few more clones in the Moglyph cloner. For example, 12. Okay, great. I will push my ring a bit. Okay, great. So now, just do not forget, the effector plane does this. The effector time rotates the clones, and the effector random randomize the colors. Great. So now I will reactivate all of them, and I will just select all the effectors that I want to group with their fall-off options. So I will select the plane, the time, and the random. Keep in mind that you can do this for really specific effectors. You can do this for 2 effectors, maybe the plane and the random only, and leave the time as it is. But now I want to make them the 3 at once. So I'll select them 3, and I will click now on the group effector. Okay, great. As you can see, you have now a new group effector called group effector. And now if I play in the effector, you just retrieve the strength, which is 100% by default. You can decrease this value and retrieve your clones as they were before you added the 3 effectors. So if I make a 0 strength, this is like you would have if you haven't got any effectors at all. And you can have a minus value which pushes the clones in the other directions, but I will leave it at 100%. And the follow-up options, in these follow-up options, you will retrieve all the previous options, but now you can animate them all at the same time, which is really great too. Okay, as you can see, you can animate this like this and complete the offset and have a whole different animation, but with the 3 effectors affected in the same time. This is really nice, and a nice and neat way to play with your clones and multiple effectors. Okay, speaking of follow-up options, you have now some more options. The previous property that was called in previous versions fall-off has been replaced with smoothness. It's I prefer this name because it's the same name in English when you deal with text layers and text animators, and the fall-off is the attenuation like in Cinema 4D, but smoothness is more comprehensive in my sense. Okay, so if I play with this fall-off completion, as you can see, this is rather smooth here. But if I put 0 in this fill smoothness here, you will have a really hard cut transition between the clones. It can be useful for some cases, so this is why it exists. I will leave it at 100, and you have now the ability to play with the ease high and ease low as well. Okay, let me demonstrate what it would do. To do so, I will just leave the plane effector, and I will choose to affect the color as well. Okay, great. So now I can see clearly what my effector plane does. Okay, and I will leave it to 50 in completion too, and I will just animate this completion offset here. Okay, great. So I will put a keyframe here at -100 until 100%. And if I play a little preview, I have this for the moment. Okay? Let's change the different settings in ease high and ease low. By default, it is -50 and 50% here. But let's put -100 and 100 here. And let's replay the animation. As you can see, let me make a slower animation. Okay, this is pretty hard transition, and I can play with this in the other direction, for example 100 in his high and -100 in his low, and you have a really different animation. Okay, it's even too fast. Okay, now we can see there is a strong easing here that is really different from the other. Let's redo -100 here and 100 here to see the difference. Okay, this is different, but I can understand that this is not that easy to understand. So there is another really cool new option in the Animate tab, which is called the fall-off shape here. You had not the choice to change the fall-off shape before, but now we can do this. So I can change it on the fly just by selecting in the effects panel the effector that I want to change in the fall-off option. So this is the effector plane that I want to affect when I will change the square shape. Okay, so I will select the effector plane in the effect panel, and I will change in the drop-down menu one of these options. And as you can see, it changes on the fly. Okay? Here you will retrieve all the shapes available in text animators. So, for example, the smooth shapes is really cool. You can have now something really smooth compared to the square shape that you had before. Okay? And now if I do the inverse, so 100 in high and minus 100 in low, you have something really different and really smooth. Okay, really great. And you can play with different settings and change the shapes. So again, you just have to select one or multiple effectors. So for example, we select all my effectors, plane, time, and random at the same time, and I can change the shape of them just by doing this. So if I do that, it works. If I do ramp down, it's the exact inverse. Okay, this is cool. And you can change in the triangle, the round shape, and the smooth shape. The smooth shape is really my preferred here because it gives you a really smooth animation. Okay, great. So we have seen the fall off shape, the group effector, and by viewing here the group effector, it makes me think that I will show you now a way to remove some effectors correctly. So before this, you would have deleted an effector by deleted with the keyboard here, but you would have a lot of expressions error, and this is totally normal because each effector in the effect has some properties linked to it in the text animators. So if you don't go to text animators, delete each effector manually before deleting the effects, you will end up with a lot of expressions error. But now in the version 2, it's really simple to do this. If I want to remove an effector, I just have to select it from the effect panel. Okay, just like this. I will go to the helpmate panel here. I will talk about it a bit later, but for now you have right there this button called remove effect. Okay, so if I select my cloner, if I select my effector, click on remove effect, as you can see, my group effector has been removed correctly. There weren't any expressions error at all, and all works properly. And if I want to, let's say, I want to remove the time and the random effector just to leave the effector plain, I select them and I can click on remove, and again, all works properly. Okay, so I will rechange in the animate tab the square shape, and again, if I want to delete it effector plane, I can go to effector plane and remove effect, and I retrieve exactly my cloner layer as if I hadn't put any effectors on it. Okay, great. This is really helpful with this button here. And since I'm showing this, I can show the other button called remove leaf, because this is exactly the same but for glyph shapes. Let me show you. If I go to the Moglyph cloner here, I select it, I go to the generate tab, I add a new glyph. I can, let's say, add this crossed square here, and this little circle here, and maybe a star. Okay, this is great. It works perfectly, but finally, I don't like the star shape here. So I could undo this so I can retrieve the previous version, but what if I like the star but I don't like the, let's say, the cross square? You can't remove and undo and redo all your stuff until you have removed the desired shape. It will be awful to do this in a really complicated scene. So now all you have to do is to know which glyph effect corresponds to which shape. And I know, because this is the second I added, that this is this one. Okay, so if you have a doubt, just play with the glyph ID here and you will see directly which is the one. So to remove this one, I just have to select its name in the effect panel and go in the helpmate tab and click on remove glyph. And as you can see, it removes the glyph properly. Same for other glyph shapes. I can, for example, I can remove the star shape and the first one, which is the square shape, and I select them both in the effect panel and click on remove glyph, and now I just end up with this glyph here, okay, which is pretty cool. Great, so let's return in the effectors, so animate tab. So let me introduce the famous sound effector. To do so, I will bring a sample sound like this. I will just trim the composition duration. Okay, great. As you can see, there is sound into it. Okay, perfect. It can be an MP3 or a WAV file, but I have pre-composed a sound, so it can be anything with audio. So how does it work? Well, you just have to select your Moglyph cloner layer like this as a first entry, and secondly you have to select the layer that you have that has the audio, okay, as a second selection. And once you do that, you can finally click on sound effector. Okay, so let it work on its own. As you can see, okay, it's down. I have created, with the click of this button, a new third layer called sound rig layer. Just don't remove this. It's really needed by the sound effector. Okay? Okay, great. So now if I do a preview, I can see my clones animated based on the audio of my file, which is really great. Okay, so there is a screen recording. This is why it's a bit laggy, but as you can see, the clones are well animated. Okay, this is really cool, and I can play in my Moglyph cloner radial with the effector sound. Go into the parameters, go to the style, and change a few options. You can go to transform, make them animate in a higher position like this, and other cool stuff. And I will just purge the memory because it's pretty RAM intensive, so be careful with a lot of clones. Be careful with the amount of clones, because it can be real slow if you don't take this into account. Okay. Okay, great. So you can animate the position, the scale, all the parameters that you have already in the other effectors. And what if I want to change a bit how it is animated? Okay, you can see the clone being a bit reddish here, because in the style it has a red fill color, but it's not what I was hoping. Okay, so how do I change this? By the way, you could face this error expression, but it's really not important. It will work even with this expression error, so don't bother with this. Okay, so how do I change the overall look of this? Well, you can make the sound rig layer visible like this. Okay, and you can see that you have some bands here that appear with a white color. Okay, it's transparent, so be sure to have a dark background to see this easily. And you can see that you have an audio spectrum effector that has the audio from your selected layer before, okay, which is the sound effects test here in my case. So you have this sound layer here, and all these properties are linked to the effector sound here. So be sure to have the very first effect in the sound rig layer that refers to your desired Moglyph cloner setup, because you can share sound rig layers with different cloners. Okay, so I had chosen the Moglyph cloner radial before clicking the sound effector, so it has referred this cloner here. Okay, so now if I go to the Moglyph cloner layer, I can retrieve my effector sound, and in the effector subgroup there is a strange option like other effectors, and as you can see it's referring the sound rig layer, which is this one. And again, you can change with another audio layer. If you create another effector with the sound effector, you will have another sound rig layer, and you can use this other sound rig layer here, okay, and change it depending of your needs. Okay, so oh yes, be careful, depending of your version of After Effects, you could end up with this configuration, but it has to be the source and effect here in the sound rig layer. So be sure to check effects and masks. Okay, so once you have done this, you can play with apply mode, which is per step, or all clones. If you choose all clones, it will animate all the glyph at the same time, but as you can see, there isn't enough information here. And per step means that all your clones will be animated independently depending on the frequency of the audio. And as you can see, all my bands are towards the left border, so I have to correctly set up these options here. So the end frequency is way too high regarding my audio layer, so I will decrease this value until I have way more bands and way more interesting banding effect here, like this, for example. Okay, so something like 700 should be nice. Okay, great. And you can play with the low compression and the high compression to make the bending more visible, and the more visible and the more contrast you have in your bending effect, the more you'll have contrast in your animation of the clones. So I will push this a bit further and play with this like this. Okay, great. I will remask my sound rig layer, and I will check my Moglyph cloner radial. Okay, so I should have an expression error where, okay, here. Okay, so now you had an expression error, you just have to type in EE on your keyboard, and if you see a little yellow triangle, it's because you have a little expression error, but really it's not a true error. You just have to click on it like this, and expression selector will rework after a while. Okay, so now if I make a preview, as you can see, this is working. Okay, so I will retrieve my parameters here in the transform. This is way too high. I will just put -100 here, and as you can see, the clone here is red because of the style with the fill color. Okay, and now you have a nice animation where each clone is animated. Okay, great. So you can animate all the properties of the effector, which is really nice. You can animate the visibility, the rotation, the skew, the position, the scale, of course, and you can play with the style option and even some other cool things like spacing and blur and offset glyphs and so on. All the parameters that are available with each existing effector, which is really, really great. Just be careful with the sound effector. As you can see, it may produce some expressions errors, and be careful especially with high number of clones, because it will dramatically slow down your machine, and this is totally normal because there are a lot of expressions that are computed with the sound effector, especially the sample image function for each clone in the time. So it can be dramatically slow if you have a lot of clones in a same composition. Okay. Otherwise, with a little amount of clones, it will work pretty well. Okay, great. This is all for the new effectors. You have seen how to remove effectors properly, so I will delete this one just by clicking the effector sound. Go to the Matte panel and click on the remove effect. Okay, great. I don't need the sound anymore, nor the sound rig layer, and I retrieve my initial radial cloner. I almost finished with the animate tab, but I wanted to show you that you can now change the random fall-off order and the linear fall-off by rows on the fly as well. So I will create another composition, and I will create a new grid cloner because I need to show multi-line options. Okay, great. And now if I click on the plane effector, okay, just to animate them independently, I can go to fall off and play with the completion, and as you can see, it's clone per clone, so it's one by one, like as usual. But if I now click on my effector plane, and you can see, keep in mind that you can see you can do this with several effectors selected. So just for the sake of the tutorial, let's add another effector like random, for example, and I can select them, group them like before. Okay, and I will play with the completion like before. Okay, perfect. And as you can see, now if I select my plane and my random effector at the same time in the effect panel, I can just click on randomize order just to change them on the fly, which is pretty nice. Okay, so if I click on it, it randomizes the fall off, and if I uncheck this parameter, it will not randomize the fall off. Okay, it is great because now we can do this on the fly. And of course, since I have linked the effector plane and the effector random with the group effector, I can now play with the random source with this option, and it will change both effector plane and effector randoms fall off random source options. Okay, which is really nice. And I can play with the completion to animate them completely. And you can do the same with the linear fall off by rows. I've changed the name because you will see another little thing later, which is pretty nice, but for now, just demonstrate what it does by unchecked the randomize fall off. Okay, of course it does nothing for example because this is not the group effector that you want to change, but the effector plane and random. So I select them both, and now I can change the randomize option. Okay, so now it's not randomized, and now if I select these two effectors, and now if I click on linear fall off, as you can see, now when I play with the completion, I animate the clones per row. Okay, you could do this before in previous versions, but you just couldn't make this on the fly like this. Okay, so just select this, check this option or uncheck this, and as you can see, again it works just on the fly. Okay, pretty cool. And you can of course mix both options to have something even different, like this for example. And speaking of this linear fall off by rows option, I wanted to show you a nice way to create a linear fall off that isn't from up to bottom, but from left to right. You could do this easily by rotating your grid, okay? And of course, you can not randomize them and play with this option. But what if you had some other shape than this square? Let's say, for example, the people, and if I select this one and this one, yes, of course, I've turned my layer at minus 90 degree. So I would have to go to the Moglyph cloner, transform, and change the rotation D to 90 degree. And now it works. Okay, but it's not that user friendly to do this. Okay, so let me show you a smarter and faster way to do this. I will delete my cloner, and if I click on shift, if I hold down the shift key while clicking on the grid cloner or while clicking on the honeycomb cloner, which are the two only multi-line effectors. So if I hold down the shift key while clicking here, I have now a grid in the other orientation. So let's redo one without clicking on shift. As you can see, it's a grid like this, and with shift it's like this. And now if you take a look at the rotation of this one, it has been turned by 90 degree, but you have the transform minus 90 degree as well. Okay, all these one click, you have turned your grid cloner in a rotated one. And this is great because now if I click on my cloner and if I go to animate, if I check the linear fall off and click on the plane effector, I can just play with the fall off option, and you have a horizontal linear fall off, which is pretty great. Okay, so it's a really little addition, but it changed the way you can work. Okay, last option and not least, you have the FX parameters option here, and by default the option called don't use unchecked helpmates FX parameters is not checked. But what does it mean exactly? So to understand this, you have to understand what is MoglyphFX parameters first. So let me show you with my radial cloner like this. Okay, before understanding this option, you will discover what this helpmat tab is exactly. You have already seen the remove glyph and remove effects options, which are both great. I will end the tutorial with custom font and info license, but right now I want to demonstrate the FX parameters subgroup, which is this whole group is here. Okay, as you can see, when you select your cloner and when you have applied an effector, for example the plane effector, okay, by default you have the clones that move on the Y position due to this -100 property, and that are red because of the fill color red here and the option that is called colors from cloners that has been unchecked. Okay, this is the default value of the effector plane, and each effector except the group effector has a subgroup called parameters, and they are all the same for all the effectors. They are all organized in subgroup called transform, style, and other. In transform, just as a reminder, you have all the anchor point, position, scale, skew, rotation, and visibility, which corresponds to the opacity. And you have the style, where you can decide the fill color, the fill hue, the fill brightness, and the same for the stroke and even the stroke thickness. And you have even other cool stuff like spacing, blur on the Y and X axis, modify glyph and offset glyphs. Okay, all those properties are called parameters, just like in Cinema 4D. Okay, and you could want to have only selected properties for specific effectors. What I mean is that I want, for example, my clones to have a red color and to be pushed by the position here, but I want to add a random effector on top of this that will randomize the scale of my clones without changing the color. Okay, so I don't want the style to change the fill hue here. Okay, but as you can see, even like this, because it's a random effector, well, your color will change even if you have checked or unchecked your colors. So sorry for this. If you uncheck the colors from cloners, you can retrieve the red color. But this is not a good example. But for the sake of the tutorial, let's say you just don't want to use this fill color at all, and you just don't want the fill hue for these specific clones. But you want the scale to be affected, which is the case because I know that in transform the scale here has been changed. Okay, and I can play with this. Okay, perfect. But okay, I just don't want my clones to be recolorized with the effector random. So how to do this? I will select my effector random and I will go to helpmate panel and I will just deselect all the parameters. You retrieve all the parameters I talked about before here, the parameters from each effector. The left column regroups the transform and the others. Okay, transform and other parameters, and all the right parameters in the right column are the style parameters. Okay, I did that in order to see clearly which parameters it is. Okay, so I will deselect all the parameters with the first option, and if you go over each button, you can read what it does by reading its help tip. Okay, so the very first button is just a general checker. If you click on this, it check all. If you re-click on this, it will uncheck all. And I will, with my effector random selected, I will just click on the fill color and fill hue and maybe colors from cloner, and whichever property you want to delete, you can delete them just by selecting them and click on this button called add or remove the checked FX parameters in the text animator. And let's have a look at what it happens when I click on this. Okay, colors, fill color, fill hue have been completely removed from the text animators. So I will undo this just to help you understand better what's going on here in the text animators. Okay, so I will deploy this layer here. I will twill all these options. Okay, great. And I will just twill down the effector random. As you can see, how does an effector works? Well, it's just a basic text After Effects native text animator that I have called with a specific name. There are some options for the fall-off, for the effectors itself, and there are just all the properties available in text animators that are just there. Okay, so but you just don't sometimes that just don't want all the properties to be there. Okay, you can't remove the effects, the properties in effects, because this is just one effect and not a plugin, so you can choose to remove this. And by the way, this is not a big deal because effects and such large pseudo effects here are really lightweight, and it won't make your composition slower. But this kind of stuff here, the properties like this, if you have a lot of them inside a same composition, inside the same layer, can be RAM computed, because as you can see, each property is linked with expressions to this. So it can really slow down your machine if you don't take in account this specific aspect of MoglyphFX. So what would be great would be to just select the properties you really need. Okay, so if I just need to play with a scale, what I could do is to select my effector random. Okay, it is now selected in the effect panel, not in the animator. Okay, it is selected here. I will go like this in this help mat tab. I will uncheck all. I will check all the options, all the parameters, and I will remove all the properties. And as you can see, all this will disappear. So I will just do it. And now, as you can see in my effector random, there isn't any parameters anymore. But how do I retrieve the specific property that I just need? Well, this is really simple. Now I can just uncheck all with this option, and I just need the scale property because I know that. Okay, this is what I want. I will just select this one manually, and now I will re-click on this button to add this property. Okay, my effector random is still selected in the effect panel, so I will re-click now on this button, and as you can see, my scale property is retrieved here. And now my effector random works as expected, and of course all the other stuff won't work, but it's really not important. The only thing that is important is the property that you really need, okay, which is this one. And by choosing which property you want for each effector, you can have a really lightweight cloner layer. Okay, so this is a nice addition. You can add and remove each wanted property or several at the same time. Okay, so I will undo this. So I have now the full stack of properties. And another thing that you can do is, so let's remove the effector random. Again, I can click on the remove effect. So now I have just the plain effector, and I will just play with some options. So I can play with X, Y position, scale X. I can even skew them, skew angle, okay, rotation Z, the visibility. Okay, I can even choose to have another style and choose another fill brightness, fill hue, maybe change the modify glyph and blur my glyph, for example. Okay, great. I don't even know the one I've changed for the sake of the tutorial, but it's not a big deal because you will see that you can reset all the parameters at once. So how do I do that? I can just select my effector, and just keep in mind that you can select multiple effectors at the same time to do so. Okay, same for the add and remove properties. So I will select my effector plane, and I will select all my options, and I will reset the parameters, the selected parameters. Okay, if I don't check some specific parameters, they won't be reset. So let's take an example. For example, I have the let's say the scale X. Okay, the scale X, I have played with this option here. Let's check all the options except the scale to see what happens. Okay, so I will select my effector plane, the effect panel, and I will click on this button called reset values, and boom, all the options, like they are here in the parameters, in the transform, style and other subgroups, have been reset, except of course for the scale here, because I hadn't checked this option before clicking on this button. Of course, I can do check all and reset all if I want to do so. This is great if you want to reset a lot of effectors at the same time, okay? Or on a specific parameters. Okay, so this is a nice addition. Another cool thing that you can do, if I undo this, okay, so I retrieved all the mess I have made in my parameters. I don't even know which one I have changed, but again, this is not a big deal because now if I select my effector plane, I can just go in this button, and this is like a magic selection. It will only check the unused parameters, those who remained unchanged and still have the default values in the selected effectors. So my selected effectors is the effector plane. So I will check on this, click on this, and now I have select only the options that have remained untouched. So this is great for many purposes. For example, I told you that it's better to have a lightweight effector by removing all the unnecessary property. Well, now with these options selected, I can go in my effector plane and remove them because I don't need them anymore. Of course, because I didn't change them. Okay? Another cool thing is that I can invert a selection of checkboxes like this with the third option. Okay? Each time you click on this, you will invert the checkboxes values. Okay, so I had this is the untouched parameters in the effector, but now if I click on this, I have all the properties that have been changed because I changed them for the sake of the tutorial. But now with these options selected, I can just click on reset and all will be reset at a time. And this is really great. It will take a bit of time for you to master these 5 buttons, but I use them a lot in production, so I definitely advise you to use these FX parameters like me. Okay, so what if you don't want to clean up your effectors after a while, after having each time created them, then select the parameters and then remove what you just don't want? Well, you have a nice option called in Animate tab, FX parameters option. Don't use unchecked Helpmats FX parameters. What does it say here? It says that if you check this, your effector that you will create won't put the animator's properties that aren't checked in this panel here in FX parameters. So let's check all for the moment and let's check this option. So let's create a new composition. Let's create a new radial. Okay, well, let's stay with the people guys here. Great. And if I select this and click on the one of these effector, since I've checked this option, let's let's uncheck this for the moment. Let's keep in mind that if I don't have it checked, this is the case by default. If I click on plane effector, it will push all the clones with the plane effector toward the center of the ring, and it will colorize them because of 2 options here, because of the colors for cloners and fill color. Okay, so now if I undo this, if I click on my cloner, and if I don't use unchecked Helpmats FX parameters, if I go to Helpmats and if I uncheck fill color and uncheck colors from cloners, now each new effector that I will create by now won't change the color at all. Okay, so if I click on plane, as you can see, the clones aren't red anymore. It will just push the clones towards the center. Okay, this is a great way to have the control over different effectors. And by the way, it's really important to do so if you want to do such an animation. So let me show you what I mean. I will quickly recreate a kind of Google Dots animation in front of your eyes. So to begin, I will click on the basic geometry, linear cloner. I will press no to center my clones. I will reinitialize the clones. I will select a count of 4 and I will add a new circle glyph, but before clicking on this I will choose a nice I think Google is like a blue one like this. Okay, I will click on this one for example, and I will click on another color. Can add for example orange. Okay, great. And I will change another for a green one. I think it's something like this. Okay, and a last one which has to be something like this, I think. Okay, I'm not a Google specialist, but I think this is something like this. Okay, great. So I have the 4 Google dots like this, and I will just, there were some colors for each glyph clones. Again, as a reminder, there are the color of each clones. Okay, so I really don't want to affect the color of my clones with the plain effector by default. So if I don't check these unchecked AfterEffects parameters, I will change the color of all my clones due to the plain settings. So I don't want to do so. Okay, and even if I click on plain, go to parameters, go to style, and if I check colors for cloners, okay, it will inherit the color of the Moglyph cloner here, not the color of the glyph itself. Okay, so you can't use an effector plane with the color with such a scenario. Okay, so I will undo this. So how do you do such a thing? Well, again, you go to Help Matte, you uncheck the color from cloners and fill color, you return to Animate tab, you check the Don't Use Unchecked Help Matte's FX parameters, and now we can play with the plain effects. Okay, so this is great. Now you have in the fall off option the ability to animate your dots. I will choose a value like let's say 50 for example, and I will change the shape like before with the smooth shape option. I can just animate the completion offset from -100 to 100. Okay, great. And now you have a nice animation like this. You can push the completion to 200 or 75 maybe. You can ease this option and you have a nice dot animation. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, this is it for the Don't Use Unchecked AfterEffects parameters. So now let's finish the tutorial with the last buttons of the AfterEffects panel. Okay, so the last two options of the AfterEffects panel are called custom font and info instance. Of course, this is where info instance you will retrieve all the informations about the product and your account settings, like you could before retrieve with a little Y circle icon, like which had to be somewhere here, but now you have a dedicated button for that. And the really cool new addition in Moglyph version 2 is the ability to create a custom font for Moglyph, like you could do with Moglyph 1.5, but directly from within After Effects. So let me show you how it works. So you don't need any composition for this. So let me show you in a blank composition. So how does it work? You have to create your font by clicking your custom font button here. It will recognize if this is the first time you create a new font with this tool, or if you are a regular user. Depending on the case, you will have a different message. And by the way, if you click on no, whichever message you have, you will leave the creation assistant. So if I click no, I haven't done anything. But if I click on yes, I will say yes, I want to launch the assistant. Okay, so since I have clicked on yes, it prompts me to enter a single unique name for my new font. So keep in mind, it will be the font of your Moglyph custom font. Keep it concise and as short as possible. Something like font tuto test maybe. Okay, font tuto test, don't make any space nor accentuated characters, and click OK. It will now ask me to locate a place where I want to create this new font folder. Okay, so I will go, for example, here. Okay, perfect. And once you have chosen your place, it will reveal in the Finder or in the Explorer this new folder that has been created. Okay, so I will leave it here for now, and I have now this nice UI panel that is the new assistant. Okay, I've worked really hard on this version of Assistant, so keep in mind that I can't do a full tutorial about new font creation in this tutorial because it's already more than 1 hour long, and you have already a tutorial dedicated to custom font creation. But I will just review the assistant really quickly. As you can see, there are a lot of texts to read, and just to let you know, it is a full tutorial. If you read each step in the correct order, and if you do exactly which is written in each step before clicking the button, you will have a full tutorial and an interactive way to create your font. So this is not the purpose of this tutorial, which is just about version 2 of Moglyph in general. So I will create a new font test in front of you just right now with this new assistant. Okay, so the first step, it says that I have now a folder called Moglyph font tuto test font creation archive. It has been created for me since I have chosen the place where I want it to be, and I had chosen the font tuto test name for my new font. Okay, so it is right there, open in my Explorer. Perfect. This is what it says here. Understood. Go ahead with the design step. Okay, if I click on this, it will launch the dedicated section of the video tutorial about the custom font creation from the previous version. You can take a look again at this part because I say a lot of important things into Adobe Illustrators. So I strongly advise you to take a look at this. This is why I opened it in the background. Okay. And for confirmed users, you can just alt-click on this button and it will skip the tutorial part here. Okay, it's written white and gray here. Confirmed users can avoid the video tutorial to launch by holding down the Alt key while clicking the previous button. Okay, so at the same time, Illustrator has been opened for you with this nice template file. So it is exactly like in my video tutorial from Mogly version 1.5. So all you have to do is to click on the icons design SVG layer here, and to design your clones beginning with the very first one, which is this one. Okay, so if I return in my assistant, what does it say? Okay, a new Illustrator has been opened. First, create your glyphs in plain black into one or more artboards, and the first artboard can stay empty. Okay, get it? On the layer called icons SVG. Perfect. So I will do it right now. Great, I will design them in plain black, just like this on the very first icon design SVG. Okay, great. I will select this artboard, click on this one, and I will create a star in the second, and maybe a circle in the third one, and maybe a square, and this is enough for the sake of the tutorial. Keep in mind that you can perfectly have a font with one single glyph in that, okay? But you have to still have this first one filled with at least one glyph, okay? This is really mandatory. And you can do like I do this right now, or you can fill all the 100 artboards to have a really nice complete 100 Moglyph custom font, okay? So for the sake of the tutorial, I will just leave these 4 ones, and once it is down, what the assistant says is to copy and paste them onto the layer called icons preview PNG at the exact same place and fill them with a white color. Okay, get it. I go in Illustrator, I will make a copy, so Command C, I will go on icon preview and Command F, okay, and I will fill them with a white color. Okay, great. So you have a little reminder here with a black label and a white label. So the glyph on the glyph shapes on the icon design SVG have to be black, and the icons on the preview PNG have to be white like this. Okay, great. So what the assistant says later. Okay, this step is finished, go to the next step. Understood? Okay. Now that you have your glyphs, it's time to export them for iCommon and MoglyphFX. Okay, cool. First, export the black labeled icon design SVG layer as SVG files into the dedicated SVG folder. And the folder is this one. Okay, let's do this quickly. So I go to the icons designs SVG folder, file, export under. Okay, great, and it asks me to export in SVG, so I choose SVG, check use artboards, check SVG format, and click on export. Validate all the default options. Great, this is done. And the second step, if I return to the assistant, do the same for the white labeled layer, but as PNG files into the PNG folder. Then choose transparent background in the PNG options. Okay, let's do this. Go to the icons preview PNG, select it, select your glyphs, file, export under, click on use all artboards, and this time choose PNG and export them in the PNG folder. Great, and choose, of course, background color transparent. This is really important. Okay, great. What does it say now? Okay, if you have any doubt, just rely on this little image here. This is self-explanatory. Okay, now go to the next step, launch the iCommon app. So just by clicking this button, you will launch the iCommon app. And this is great because it does it for you. Okay, this is really an interactive assistant. Okay, so now as you can see, the assistant has changed. You had before the step 1, 2, 3, and now you have validated the third step. So now it is a fourth step. You are now in iCommon.io/app. Okay, the iCommon has been launched for you in the web browser. Perfect. If an untitled set already exists, again, you just have to read all the step text and you will find how to use it. So if an untitled set already exists, click on the hamburger icon on its right side and click on the remove set command. Okay, let's do this. I have an untitled set already existing because I have already used iCommon before. So I will go to its little hamburger icon and select all, and in this same hamburger remove set. Perfect. Now I have all is empty. Okay, back in the assistant. Then click on the top left purple button called import icons and select all the exported SVG files contained in your Moglyph font tuto test font creation archive svg subfolder. Let's do this. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is the purple import icons button. So click on this and select your folder, which is this one, and choose the svg folder and select all the svg files. You should have 100 of these files. Okay, open, and now you can retrieve your 4 little shapes here. You can see them. Okay, great. So back in the assistant, what do I do now? Click on the select all options from the new sets hamburger menu so that all your glyphs appear with a yellow border. Okay, select all, perfect. Okay, back in the assistant, finally click on the generate font button in the bottom right corner of the web page. Okay, let's do this. Generate font is here. Click on this. Perfect. Okay, I have done that. So what's next? Click on that. And now a new web page should have opened with all the glyphs and their Unicode details. This is right. As you can see, this is a new page. Okay, firstly, copy the following text. Okay, I will take all this text, click copy, then click on the preferences button at the top of the web page and paste the copied text in the first font name field. Perfect. So I will find the preferences here. I have a font name input here, so I will delete this and copy and paste the text that was in the clipboard, and this is exactly the same name. This is really important than this name here. Okay, great. Replace the default value in baseline height by a value of 50 and close the preference window. Okay, let's do this. So find the, okay, this is there in font metrics. Okay, baseline height, this is this value by default, but I want this to be 50. Okay, 50%. Great, and once it is down, you can close the preference window. Great, what do I do now? Assistant. Yep, click on the download button at the bottom right corner of the icon web page. Great, there is a button here called download. I will do it. Okay, and it will be called Moglyph font tuto test.zip. Perfect. Okay, so this is here. I will unzip it. Perfect. What do I do now? Okay, great, I downloaded the font. Now what? Click on this. Oh, okay. Sometimes a message will pop up that tells you that you have to create a folder called exactly like this. Normally, if your permission settings aren't too strong, you won't have this issue. But here, the permissions are specifically strong, so I will have to create this folder manually. So I will just right-click, copy this name, and in my application, as you can see, application, AfterEffects, script UI panel directory, I have to create this folder. So application, AfterEffects, scripts, script UI panel, and I have to create a new folder called, oh, sorry for this, a new folder called Moglyph custom assets, exactly like this, with uppercase here and here without any space. Okay, if you have any doubt, this is exactly the name that appears here. But don't worry if you don't see this message. This is because it created this folder for you. Okay, so great, I have done this. So now if I click on OK, okay, great, I managed to pass this step. So now it asks me to unzip the folder called Moglyph font tuto test, okay, that I have downloaded from iCommon. and copy the file called MoglyphFontTutorTest.ttf contained in its fonts folder and paste it in your own MoglyphTest font creation archive fonts folder. Okay. And double click on this TTF file in order to install the font on your system. Okay, great. So let's do this. Okay, I will go to the download fonts, and okay, this is this one. I will copy this one inside my font folder. Okay, it is located in the correct location now, and I will double click on it to install this. Okay, so the font book will launch, and this is great. This is done. Okay, it has been installed. Okay, so now all that has been done, and finally copy the folder called MoglyphFontTutorTest, previously named PNG. Yes, the assistant renamed it for you, and that contains all the white glyph PNG preview icons. Then paste this folder into your application folder, script UI panels, and Moglyph custom assets directory, the folder that you had to create manually. Okay, so let's do this. This is the folder that I have to copy. It contains all the glyph PNG. So copy, go to the application, AfterEffects, script UI panels, Moglyph custom effects, and paste it here. And this is down. Okay, so now if I click on this button, got it, now it is finished, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, congratulations, you have successfully created your own Moglyph custom font. Next time you restart After Effects, you retrieve your Moglyph font tutor test like this in your drop-down menu. So you have to restart the After Effects application in order to see this in Moglyph. Okay, so close After Effects now if you want to see it now, but you can leave it later if you prefer. I will close this now. Okay, and I will start After Effects right now. Let's wait a few seconds for the application to launch. Okay, let's create a new composition, and normally I should retrieve my new custom font here, and if I click on this I will find it under two separators here, MoglyphFontTutorTest. So if I select this, click on Radial Cloner, I have now the glyph that I have designed, and if I choose to add some glyph right there, like this, I can retrieve the glyph there is a little bug with the glyph names, because on this Mac the order isn't really the one that is used usually, but you can retrieve the numbered as artboard here. So I can click on this button and you have your buttons. Okay, so you have your custom font installed and you can retrieve your glyph in the glyph panel. So you have managed to create your own custom font thanks to this wonderful new custom font creation assistant. So this is it. It's a long tutorial, sorry for this, but I really hope that you guys will like this new version of MoglyphFX. It's really packed with a lot of new additions here in the Animate tab with the group and the sound effector, all this cool stuff, and of course all these new FX parameters, the custom font assistant, and the remove effect and remove glyph. It's really a nice major version of MoglyphFX. Can't wait to see what you guys will manage to do with this. So don't hesitate to comment and to contact me. And by the way, I can create custom fonts for you. If you want to, just contact me with when you create the custom font, you can here in the assistant here, you have a button that you can use to join me directly with a support ticket, okay, directly on AEscript. Don't hesitate to contact me for Moglyph creation assistant issues, or if you want me to design a real true custom font with 100 glyph for you. Okay, so that's it. I'm really glad to have shown you that, and I can't wait to see what you guys will do with this. So bye, see you later.